You received a call from an inmate at the Department of Corrections. This call will be recorded and monitored. If you wish to block any future calls of this nature, dial 7 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this call, hang up.
Well, hello there, Jeffrey. Haven't heard from you in a while. Yes, Securus. I'm very familiar with it. There's been quite a few complaints against that company, and a lot of it is technical issues, which, as you know, the more moving parts you have, the more likely it is to break down, and that's a pretty complicated network. Yeah, I know. The video that there's people that said they pay for it, and then it doesn't go through and they're not able to get their money refunded. And it's difficult to reach their customer service. A lot of it's automated. So there's a few issues to work with here. And I guess with a company like that, when people are constantly calling to complain, you really don't want somebody talking to them. I know the previous company, JPay, I spoke with them several times and they were very helpful. And I even made a video concerning their services. But being knocked out of the competition now and part of Securus, things are a little bit different. So I definitely understand your frustration of losing your video call. Well, yeah, the, you should be thankful though, because there's people outside the United States that have even bigger problem than you. They're uh, they're trying to contact their loved one and the system just doesn't work. They get error messages. And even if they do talk to somebody at Securus, it's not fixed. I know recently I had some issues with Brazil and I sent an email to Securus and the people that were complaining, they said that Securus was able to fix the issues. And it could have been a simple issue, just an oversight, or maybe the fact that nobody overseas was able to get through and talk to him. But whatever the reason, looking into it, they were able to fix it. And if they don't know there's a problem, they can't fix it. That the first step in solving a problem is to identify the problem. Okay, and so was your loved one able to contact Securus and maybe get a credit or something? Okay, so you're still working on it. I could tap into it as well. I think the more I communicate with Securus, the more of a relationship I can get with them, and maybe we can share ideas and get things done. I wouldn't mind getting an answer to an issue and then sharing it with everybody. That would be really nice, and maybe there's some workarounds. Oh yeah. There's and sometimes it's just related to a certain facility or a certain state, and there's groups on Facebook, and I can tune into them. And there's times people will ask, I'm trying to. I haven't received a call, from my loved one in days. Anybody else having that problem? And then you'll have all kinds of little responses, and there is quite a bit of frustration because we. I know when I first started communicating with incarcerated people, there was a lot of the. I sent letters out, and now with e-messaging and telephone
You have
calls,
60 seconds remaining.
it's easier to communicate with people. But it was nice to send a letter. It was nice to receive a letter. And so I know this is very important to you guys. This gives you contact with the outside world. You can seek support. And I'm able to help people because I can communicate with the folks in there. But when they start messing with this, it just causes frustration, and we don't need that. And yes, there's going to be technical problems, but we need to minimize them. And we need a way to communicate that. Yeah, there's
You have 30 seconds
a
remaining.
lot of things that need to be done, but you work on your end. You talk to the staff over there. You talk to the other inmates, and let's get a group of loved ones together and see what we can do. Good. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Well, thanks for the call, and you take care of yourself, and I'll get on the Securus thing. Good. Good. I'm happy to hear that. Stay strong, and let's do it. Hello, welcome to AQS Inmate Call. I'm your host, Joel Wilborn, and this episode is about correctional centers. Let's just put it like that. We, as a society, want to get rid of anything that could cause harm or risk our safety or destroy, kill, our property, loved ones, visitors. It's just a natural thing to want a safe community, safe and productive. So if a person commits a crime and then we convict this person and then the person goes to prison, we don't want that person coming back out into community in worse shape. It would be nice that the person comes out and blends back into society, pretty much never to be heard from again. Yet, instead of focusing on correctional centers doing their job, we're focusing on things that some experts or disgruntled victims are just trying to make us believe that the real source of the problem is something that just won't have an effect at all. I've talked to dozens of incarcerated people, and I usually don't want to talk about the crime because they've already gone to court. They've already been convicted. And since people are listening in on the phone calls, I don't want to give any new information to them that could jeopardize it. So that's just taboo. I don't talk about that. But I will talk about the conditions and what advice they have for other people and what can be done to improve the system. And I guess the closest I get to the crime is I'll ask, what could we as a community have done to help you not commit something like that or turn down this path? And the answers vary because people are individuals and you can't have one solution to fix every problem. If you have 100 people that are locked away, you're going to have 100 different reasons, minimum, of why these people were locked away. And there's no one source, no one motive. It's usually a combination of stuff. And to focus on banning assault weapons, that's something I've talked about before. Of all the people I've spoken with, serial killers, one-on-one killer, thieves, drug dealers, gang members, none of them say I committed the crime because it was easy to buy an assault weapon. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even come up. And this is something that when I'm asking them, will assault weapons, banning them, help reduce crime? Not one of them said yes, it will. And we can put every law we want out there. Criminals aren't dumb. If they want to commit a crime, they'll figure out a way to do it. And if you can't get an assault weapon and you're really upset, a pistol. I mean, there's stories of the Old West where people could just fire multiple rounds, maybe a 6-shooter, and they just fire all 6 rounds within seconds and hit their target because they practice, they train with it. And knives can be thrown, forks, rocks, There was a recent murder in my area where a person was hit in the head with a stone. So murder is just something that's going to happen. Yet, if we convince the people that murdering somebody or even suicide is not the best way to handle it, I think we could reduce crime. Don't give them a reason to say, well, my problem's still here. I'm going to find another way to do this. Soon we're going to be seeing people renting cars and dropping them and filling them up with explosives and blowing up stuff. What are you going to do to stop that? If somebody parks a truck next to a school and ignites a bomb, is that what we want? And with securest technologies, they're becoming a monopoly out here. So you have to deal with their rules and you have to deal with their service if you want to talk to somebody that's in prison. And when I deal with this company, there's times that their service isn't available. You pay for it and you don't get a refund, or the money just disappears, or there's a switchover, change, and things are lost. And sometimes they credit people back. I've gotten a few credits from that company. It's just that's something that we can invest in and get good results. I've created scenarios, I've asked people questions, put jokes and stuff, and they're telling me that it really helped them get through the day. They like the words of wisdom that I would relay to them, or they enjoyed the little scenario I created. You know, like if you woke up in the morning and you were free and you were sitting on the bench in downtown, what would you do? And I get some really nice results from that. And it teaches me what's going through their mind at the time, and how they're feeling, and what we could do to help them help themselves. I enjoy that kind of interaction. And I've had hundreds of emails like that, and it's just fun to open it up and see these responses. And they're feeling good, I'm feeling good, but if it's delayed or if it's restricted, you know, it puts a little bit of frustration in there. And so I believe that if a person has to be locked up, you know, the state, the county, the city says this person has to be locked away in prison. There's no way around it. You don't put the person in there and block their ability to communicate with the outside world, because there's just no good coming out of that. You want them to be able to communicate. And even on the websites of a lot of the facilities, the prison facilities out there, they'll talk about people communicating and how the facility is a big advocate of that. They want people to communicate. They don't want to stop it. Yet, let's face it, behind the scenes, that's exactly what's happening. So if you're going to lock a person up, you should allow them to talk to their children, talk to their parents, wives, husbands, siblings. And the only way to really get a hold on that is just to have the facility pay for the service. Loved ones should not have to pay to talk to somebody who committed a crime. It's like punishing the loved one for loving somebody who committed a crime. When my fiance was in prison, I didn't commit a crime. I didn't even help her to commit the crime, yet I'm paying all of that. And a lot of that, when I would send her money, they would just take it, making up a reason. And so I would lose money for nothing. So the way I see it is I'm going to get my money out of it one way or the other. And I will go through the system and I will keep pushing, and I'll be just more or less like saying, you confiscated my money. I paid for this. I'm going to get something out of this. That's my motivation. And I shouldn't have to think that way. Yet that's what this fantastic correctional center is doing. The Department of Corrections is more interested in profit than a safe community. So while we're running around thinking that if we ban weapons, or if we change the Constitution, or we make new laws, the world's going to be a safer place. While the correctional center, they're wanting more profit, they need more people in there, and so they're just going to sit back and watch us create more criminals. And as an advocate, that's not what I'm looking for. So one thing we need to do, we need to get together and we need to fix telephone calls, email, video visits to be paid for by the people that lock these folks up. That way, if there's a technical problem, I won't be losing money. The incarcerated person won't be losing money, but the state, county, the facility, whatever's paying for the service, will be losing money. Maybe that will prompt them not to put so many people away. Maybe that'll prompt them to work with the folks and say, we don't need all these technical problems. But the way I see it right now, for every phone call that doesn't go through, that's money in the pocket for the facility that should be rehabilitating these people, but they're not. And it's certainly a big profit for the folks that are providing the service. I was watching the news and they were doing an interview of a sheriff who didn't run for re-election. He decided to retire. And they were just curious about some of the things that happened while he was serving as sheriff. And he was talking about the jails. Now, a big thing people want to do is fix the jails, build more jails, just create places where people could be locked up. And he was saying the funding could go toward building this new jail, but then it could be pulled back later on, or it could wind up costing more and they just don't have the budget. So he was saying that this was not a good way to use the money, that they should hire more officers, do more training, and work with individuals. You know, you could come upon a person who's locked in a house holding the occupants hostage, and we could wind up bursting in there and killing the person, or we could wind up just grabbing the person, throwing them in prison, and whatever it was that made them do that is still there. It's still in their mind. All their weapons are gone. And even any paperwork or resources they were using, they're all gone. They're just standing there in a prison uniform with the same mentality. And so when they get out, I really don't see them as being a better person, and that mentality is gone. One of the victims of Gary Ridgway has a relative who met Gary and was talking to him. And Gary told her that if he got out, he would commit a crime. So most likely he would rape and murder another person. He knows he's in the right place. And when I speak to people that's interacted with him, he has a certain pattern that he does now, and it's not very deviant. He's just trying to share some information with people. And It's usually like Bible verses or some advice or something. And this is a person who accepts his condition. He knows he's got a terrible craving. Now, we, as a human race, there's one thing that's normal for us. I know we all have different definitions of what's normal, but for a man to love a woman and take care of her, that's normal. That's what we want to teach people. We want to teach them the normal stuff. For a man to marry a woman and then beat her and mistreat her, that's not normal, and that's not what we want to teach folks. That's not how we want to raise our children. So when you walk outside and you hold the door open for somebody, or you yield and let people go by, that's what we want is normal. And it's something that we learn. It's something that's our state of mind. But if you don't have this in your life, you'll do things that aren't normal. You'll run the red light, or you'll cut a person off in traffic. For us, that's not considered normal, but for the person who does that, it is. That's our normal way of life. That's all this person has learned to do. And having an assault weapon isn't going to change that. And not having an assault weapon isn't going to stop it. It's going to continue unless something happens. And most likely it's the person who's committing these terrible things, these crimes, this rude behavior. That's the person that's going to be able to stop it. Nobody else can do that. So when we are fascinated by people like Charles Manson or Jeffrey Dahmer or even Gary Ridgway, it's because it's something that we don't normally think of doing. These violent crimes, these outlandish bank heists, these things are good movie plots, and we watch them because we're trying to understand something that isn't normal for us. Of course, the people that do these things, that's normal for them. And for these experts, they look at it and say, oh yes, we've talked to several of the people that committed these type of crimes, and this is what we came up with. And while we're looking at this and we're fascinated by these crimes, we're not thinking about what is causing them, what's going through these people's minds that in many cases they just can't stop. And we're interested in learning about the childhood. What was it like for Jeffrey Dahmer growing up? Oh my goodness, he had a broken family. Yeah, and then there's some that have good families, like they say, the son of a preacher man, and they'll still run into that. And it could be as a matter of proving themselves, or they can't get any recognition or satisfaction from doing what we consider normal, the good stuff, and they'll do that kind of stuff. Or it could just be a fantasy in their mind that they just cannot escape. And when you look at the history of some of the folks that commit these violent offenses, you'll see that there's an interesting common pattern between them. But the only way you'll figure that out is to sit and talk with them. And you can't have one solution in this. There's going to be multiple things. We do know people want to belong. They don't want to live in isolation and be rejected. I'm an introvert, and even I like interacting with people in certain situations. And if I were isolated, it wouldn't destroy me. But the fact that I have people out there, because being a diabetic, I need a medical team, and I need coworkers to help me get things done. And there's times that I just have something on my mind and want to talk about it. And having other people around is nice. Imagine not having that. Imagine going to your parents and you can't get anything because they're busy getting drunk or high, or they're working all the time, or they're just not being a parent. And imagine a best friend betraying you, or you're doing your best to look good. You put on a nice outfit. You go into a party, and the people just mock you. Imagine what that does to folks. And I know there's a lot of resources out there, but people don't know about them. If somebody's thinking about suicide, they're trying to get rid of an issue that's just plaguing them. They're not thinking about calling somebody. And if a person calls them or drops in to visit them, I just came by to see how you're doing, if you need anything, that could make a big difference. It's not, of course, it's not the one fix for everything, but those welfare checks, the welfare, when you look at somebody and you do when you go in to make sure somebody's okay, and that could make a big difference. Just imagine feeling just terrible and miserable, and you don't want to go outside or see anybody, and you get a knock at the door, and somebody just standing there with some chicken soup or something, or a cup of coffee from a coffee shop. And once again, it's not 100% guaranteed, but at least it's an effort, and at least it shows the person that there's somebody out there who cares, and it's not trying to show any sympathy or try to judge a person. It's just that I care about you and I want to make sure you're okay. And that's really felt with people, that family members of somebody who committed suicide. They're really starting to go back in the past and think what they could have done. There's nothing you can do. That's up to the individual. People commit crimes on their own. People commit suicide on their own. It's just that we need to make that information available. And the best way to do that is just keep communication going. Accept folks. There's a lot of people out there going through a lot of hard times, and like the common thing is you're not alone. And it's true. Nobody is alone in their misery. And do we want to put those people with the same issues together in a group and have them talk? Well, if they're not coming up with a solution, talking to each other isn't going to help. They need to talk to people that actually got through it. And when I talk to incarcerated people, I'm not talking about the crime they committed. I'm talking about what we can do as a community to prevent it from happening to somebody else. And none of them say, I don't want to talk about it, or nothing I say is going to matter. They give me the advice, and they give me very good advice. And it's easy to believe that because these are the people that have been through there. And if this had been done, maybe I wouldn't have done this crime. Or if I had my issues addressed when I went to seek help, maybe this wouldn't have happened. But we're not going to understand unless we talk to them. And remember, there's not one fix that's going to solve all of this. I ask that you go to my YouTube channel, take a look at some of the videos in there, and just listen to what these folks say you can do to help other people find a way to overcome whatever's causing them to do this stuff. And let's work together to fix the real problem. Weapons aren't the problem. There's people that get killed because they're committing a burglary to get money for a drug addiction. And drug addiction is something that we can work on and fix. And a lot of crimes will go away. And a lot of prisons will be reduced. And a lot of profit will be lost by those profit-seeking people that want us locked up. So let's watch some videos. Let's maybe open up a line of communication with these folks. Get some information on what we can do to work as a team to help reduce crime and make our communities safe, and help our children to grow up in a better world than we grew up in. Well, thank you for tuning in. Have yourself a wonderful day and go out and make beautiful memories for tomorrow.